Hey, welcome back to another episode of my naive understanding of. This is the second episode in the series where we started off with CSS Flex and looked at some basic properties on the container of the Flex. This time around we're going to look at a few more, but these are going to be on the child items, basically the direct descendants of the container. So I have this little folder prepared already, and yeah, let's create an index.html. We'll add some basic code here. First, let's create a container, and then we'll add 5 spans. So for these, should have added that right there, but let's do 4 spans. That should be good enough. And here we can do let's assign a class of child item, and let's make this a unique item. We'll style that separately or differently, and we'll also create a small style section here to get rid of the basic styling part. So let's remove the body's margin that comes by default on through the browser. So yeah, that's done. Now let's run this. I'm going to use an npm package. This is called watch http server. You can install this with npx as well, same command without the p. So it's running on port 8080. Let's refresh this. Forgot to add the actual content here, my bad. So let's do child, or let's just write ABCD, right? Or since I'm learning French, let's do un, deux, trois, and quatre. So that's good. And one thing I wanted to do is put all of this at the center of the page. So make the body itself as a flex. Let's do flex direction of column. So the main axis is vertical now. So we'll put everything at the center. So align items of center and then justify content of center. This will get easier to understand if you look at the first video in the series. It's in the playlist. Now we're also going to use Firefox like last time to do the styling. So one thing that I forgot to do is make the container itself a flex. So add that part, and also since this is the body, let's add a height of 100 vh, and then yep, so that aligns everything in the middle. If I turn on the flex on this is our current flex box. So one thing we could do is just add a width to this. We have 4 items, so let's make it 800 pixels, and let's assign a default width to the spans. Let's make it 200 pixels because let's make it 100 pixels. We'll have some space left. So half of the flex is empty because 4 times 100 is 400, which is half of 800 pixels, which is the container. Cool. So that's ready. All of the basic setup is done. So now let's look at some new properties on Flex that we didn't look at last time. So one thing is, if I increase the height on this, so let's make it height. Currently it's taking up height to be that's like so currently the height is decided based on the content. So since these require just one line, so this must be what, 16 pixels? It's 19 pixels. So if I make this let's say 50 pixels, what that does is puts everything at the top. So what that means is this flex item, let's take our unique one, this one, this unique item, its height currently is 50 because that's what we set the container as. So what that means is the child item took the height of the entire flex. So one thing that we can do is for us, this we don't have flex direction, and by default it's row. Let's for clarity add that. So now didn't do anything, but we have basically said that align items horizontally or place items horizontally. One thing we can do is the way we position things or align things in the cross axis, that can be done either directly in the container like we did it in body, and we can also set it for each of the child items. So what I mean by that is, if I select my unique child item, what I can do is I can do an align, but rather than doing align items, I'll do align self. So align this particular child item, and since the cross axis is vertical, things are the starting part is top and the bottom part is the down part. So if I do align self of flex start, what that does is, if you see here now, we got a little border here saying that this flex item, this child item, is only taking up this much space, this top part, the amount it requires, and it's again 19.2 pixels. So we can set it to things like center, so it's centered within that flex container, all of that good stuff. So align self will align that particular flex item within the cross axis. So that's one new property, and let's look at a few more. So this, we have this little empty space, right? And that's not being used currently because our width of the child items is less than the containers width, which is 800. This turns out to be 4 times 100, that's 400. So half of it is empty. What if you want to fill up that half? And first what we'll do is we'll try to fill the entirety of the flex by giving each of the items exactly the portion that they want. So that means we have 400 pixels left. We'll give each of the child items 100 pixels each. To do that, we'll give a flex grow of 1. So what that will do is, it will allow the child item to grow, and since all of the child items get flex grow of 1, they'll grow with the same proportion. So what I've done is I've given flex grow of 1, and what that did is the remaining space, that was 400 pixels, that remaining space got divided among the 4 items in an equal fashion. So now each of the items is 200 pixels, 200 pixels wide. Now what you can also do is, let's say this is unique, so let me do a flex grow of 2. So if you think about it, what it feels like is that magically what CSS is going to do is make unique twice as wide as the other ones, right? But that's not exactly how it works. So first, I might have screwed something up already because that didn't work. Oh, this is more specific. So this is CSS's specificity coming into place. Let me let's style it this way. So I have child, and then I am going to assign this also a width of 100 pixels. Yeah. So now what I've done is I've given all the child items 100 pixels width, but I've also given flex grow of 1 to these 3 items, and a flex grow of 2 to the second child. And what it feels like is that the values to the value of width is going to become twice as the other ones, but that's not how it's calculated. So let's look at how first we'll see what the values are, and then we'll see how they got calculated. So now if you see from 100 pixels, the three items, the first, third and fourth, they have a width of 180, and the second item has a width of 260, and that's definitely not 1:2 ratio. So let's figure out how that happened, that calculation. So let me use the calculator. So we had a remaining space of 400 pixels, right? And then what happened is I said to all the first, third and fourth children grow with a proportion of 1. All right, so that's divide. So we have 3 times 1, and then for the second one, for second child, we have a flex grow of 2. So that means we are going to do 2. So that means 400 pixels got divided by essentially 5 times. So which is 80. Now, since the first, third and fourth child have flex grow of 1 and initial value of 100 as width, their final width is calculated this way. So 100, which is the original width, and then one part of the remaining width, which is 80. So this is 180. So if you look at the first child, the width is 180. Now so first, third and the fourth items, they have 180 as their width, as you can see, right? For the second one, since the flex grow is 2, this width will be 100, the original part, and 80 times 2, which is 260, and that's what we got. So this is a bit counterintuitive. I hope and I wish rather that Flex did it in a different way, like Grid does it. So Grid allows you to actually specify the proportions of width and height, which we can probably cover in a later video. But since this is how Flex calculates, this is like calculating the remaining space rather than the actual width. That's why you might get weird results, but that's how it works. So that's Flex Grow. One thing you can do that's pretty cool is, by default Flex Grow has a value of 0. So if I remove everything, they go back to 100 pixel each. If I give a Flex Grow of 1 to the unique child, what that will do is it will allow that particular item to take the entirety of the remaining space. So what that does is make the unique have a width of 500 pixels, because that was the entire remaining space. So that's one thing you can do. So that usually you find this kind of user interface in the nav bar. So you'll have some branding here on the left part, some secondary items on the right, and then you put the empty space here and make it Flex Grow as 1. So that's Flex Grow. Right, so we're back. I've made a few changes here. So first is I've assigned to all of the children items width of 100 pixels, Flex Grow, and a flex basis of 150 pixels, which I'm going to explain what that means. And then only to that specific child, I've given a Flex Grow of 2. So that means basically I can remove both of these. That doesn't do anything. Yes. So now what happened is I gave a flex basis of 150 pixels. So if you look at line 26, the default width was 100 pixels. So by default, starting width was 100 pixels. But now what happened is, since I gave a flex basis of 150 pixels, how the remaining space gets calculated when Flex Grow comes in is like this. So since flex basis is 150 pixels to each of the child, first what we do is we say that each of the child has a width of 150 pixels now. And if I do 150 pixels into 4, that would be 600. What that means is the remaining space is 200 pixels. So that's what we have to divide amongst the four children now. So how that happens now is pretty similar to what we did before. We have 200 pixels that's remaining, and we have to divide that among 5 portions. So each of the portion is worth 40 pixels. And now since the basis was 150, the new width of these 3 children would be 150 plus 40 40, which is 190 pixels, and that's what they have. The other one will have 150 plus 80, so that's 230. So that's how flex basis works. So that flex basis tells the flex system to base the calculation of the remaining spaces distribution on the value that you've provided, and there are multiple ways to provide this value. Now the last part is let's keep flex basis. Actually, we'll comment flex grows for now, and we are back to 600 pixels. Now what if I give flex basis of 200? So that would exactly fit all the 4 children, so that's good. If I make it more than 200, it's still going to fit all the 4 children, because flex is going to try and fit in all the children, and once it gave 200 pixels, the flex got filled and it can't assign more width, so it's going to stop at 200 pixels. So that was another episode on flex part 2, and we looked at a few more CSS properties. If you look at this article by CSS Tricks, and that's what I always follow in case I forget something about flex, you'll see there are a couple of more CSS properties on the child items, and also they have some shorthands that you can use. I personally would recommend you go through this article and then try to play around with it a little bit to really understand how flex works and use it in real projects. Obviously using it in real projects will kind of solidify the actual concept with how that's going to look and feel in an app. So yeah, that's what I would recommend. So again, yeah, this was the second part of CSS Flex. I'm not sure if we'll cover the rest of the properties. That's as I mentioned, that's something we should go through by ourselves. But and I highly doubt if I've actually used the remaining of the properties. These are the ones that are always used. So yeah, thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, you can add them in the comments, and all recommendations for future videos are always appreciated. You can put those in the comment section as well, and give this video a like if you liked it. Subscribe to my channel. Thanks. See you next week.